I move now to questions for oral answer. And the first question is a name of the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shearer.
And in that spirit, can I just welcome you to your position here?
Thank you, Mr. Shearer.
To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements?
Clearly not.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Does he stand by his statement that, quote, there have been cases where the Australians have considered whether they would help shepherd a boat across the Tasman? And if so, on how many occasions has this occurred?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and one.
Further supplementaries? Further supplementary?
Yes, supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary
From
question.
who did he receive advice that Australia was considering shepherding boats containing asylum seekers to New Zealand?
Right Honourable Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, my intelligence agencies, and given the member is on the Intelligence Select Committee, if he'd like to have a briefing at the next Select Committee and see the paperwork, I'd be more than happy to release that for him.
Supplementary? Supplementary, David.
The Prime Minister, did he offer to take 150 of Australia's boat people, or was it requested by Australia?
Right Honourable Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, I made the suggestion. I made the suggestion for the following reasons. In my opinion, Australia has much greater capacity to disinterrupt and ensure that boats actually don't disrupt, boats that would otherwise leave for our shores. Secondly, in my opinion, it would encourage them to keep boats that they might otherwise shepherd across the Tasman. And thirdly, it gives us the optionality to send mass arrivals that could come in New Zealand if we so chose to change the law to camps offshore. All three of those reasons are very sound reasons for the steps we've taken. I might also add that these refugees that we will be taking are within the cap of 750, so frankly I'm somewhat ambivalent of whether they would come from Australian territory or Asia or Africa.
Supplementary?
Supplementary. When was the last time a boat containing asylum seekers actually arrived in New Zealand?
Yeah, very good question.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, I'm sure the members are aware we haven't had a mass arrival in New Zealand. But again, I go back to the member and say to him he's a member of the Intelligence Select Committee. If he would like me to authorise for him some of the paperwork that I see, he should feel free to read that paperwork. And I say to this House, Mr. Speaker, that I've now read some comments from Mr. Shearer that says he won't be reversing the national government's position. If he ever gets anywhere near office, he'll quote-unquote ring the Aussies. Well, good luck. They'll give you the same advice that we've had. There's lots of people that could potentially come.
Supplementary, David Shearer.
Has he seen any reports about a boat potentially preparing to depart Indonesia, possibly bound for New Zealand in late 2012? And if so, does he stand by his statement yesterday about that boat? Don't know whether it actually happened, it fell over.
Mr. Speaker, I can't confirm the location that the boat might have left from because there are intelligence reasons why we would not want to do that. Secondly, absolutely. I worked on that issue for a number of weeks before the end of this year, and I go back to the member. If he wants to, well, it's interesting actually, isn't it? If the Leader of the Opposition wants to come to a briefing at the Intelligence Select Committee, if he wants to see the paperwork, hey, he should feel free. I'm more than happy for that to be the case. But by the way, the last time this country took refugees within the UNHCR cap by Helen Clark, we didn't see the Labor Party arguing about it.
Supplementary question, Brendan Horan.
Speaker. To the Prime Minister, why has Dame Jenny Shipley not been stood down from the board of state-owned enterprise Genesis Energy in the wake of her role in the commercial failure of Mainzeal Construction?
Order. I don't believe that question in any way relates to the theme of this question now being asked. Point of order. Honourable Trevor Miller.
Mr. Speaker, while I'm slightly reluctant to defend the member in the corner, that you could not get a broader primary than does he stand by all his statements. The member's clearly able to go to areas well beyond what the Leader of the Opposition has.
My difficulty is, and perhaps the Prime Minister can assist, has he made any statements about the continuation of Honourable Dame Jenny Shipley in that position? And if so, he might be quite comfortable to answer the question.
I don't recall making any statements about her continuation. I'm happy to check the record. I obviously did a number of interviews, but I don't recall any.
The easiest way to progress this matter is I invite Brendan Horan to repeat the question.
Well, point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Brendan Horan.
The Prime Minister has made statements in the media about Mainzeal construction.
And I'm inviting the member to repeat his question.
Thank you. To the Prime Minister, why has Dame Jenny Shipley not been stood down from the board of state-owned enterprise Genesis Energy in the wake of her role in the commercial failure of Mainzeal construction?
Point of order, Right Honourable Winston
Mr.
Peter.
Speaker, you will see the primary question. It requires the Prime Minister to have made a specific statement about Jenny Shipley's position. The Prime Minister said he has not made one, and the questioner must now point to the evidence that justifies him trying to get it within the ambit of the primary question.
I thank the member for his assistance. On this occasion, I am now accepting the question from Brendan Horan, and I'm inviting the Prime Minister to answer the question. He can answer it accordingly, if he so wishes. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I acknowledge that Dame Jenny Shipley is the current chair of Genesis, and I acknowledge that she was a director of one of the Mainzeal companies. I don't know the exact one off the top of my head. Oh, two, if the member says two, that'd be right. There'd be about 100 times less than the number of Twitters that he's made about Russell Norman. But anyway, going back to the point, Speaker, the situation is that we have not seen any particular reason why we very much regret what's happened with Mainzeal as the government, because that will have an impact on subcontractors and employers in New Zealand. Any particular reason at this point that would suggest that she should no longer chair a state-owned enterprise?
Supplementary, David Shearer.
Is it correct that he went down to Queenstown last week to fight for the welfare rights of Kiwis in Australia and came back with 150 of Australia's boat people?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, no, that's not correct. Interestingly enough, Mr Speaker, I did go to Queenstown last weekend to discuss the deal that the Labour government did in 2001 to stop New Zealanders getting entitlements, and Phil Goff was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he stitched New Zealanders up. So I came back with the knowledge that I pointed that out to Julia Gillard.
Supplementary question, Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does he stand by his statement, and I quote, "We are likely to create 170,000 jobs in the next 4 years," end quote, given that a year and a half later there are 22,000 fewer New Zealanders in jobs?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, yes, I stand by that statement. And secondly, Mr Speaker, there are a number of different measures at the moment to look at it. The member is quoting from HLFS, but just a quote from QES, which the opposition were claiming is the gold standard just a few weeks ago for looking at employment. Under that measure, 54,000 new jobs were created over the last 2 years.
Move now to question number 2 in the name of Paul Goldsmith.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister.